I'm your host, Bradford Lassiter, and welcome to another episode of the Lassiter Factor Monthly Report, the show where I break down everything that happened in the world of movies and TV. And in this case, I'm breaking down everything that happened in the month of October. And if you watched last month's video, thank you so much for watching. If you like this video, like, comment, share, subscribe. Let me know in the comment section below what you think. Now let's get into it. But before I get into it, I gotta address the sudden passing of Sean Connery, who passed away at the age of 90. Now, I'll admit, personally, I'm not gonna sit here and act like I was the hugest fan of Sean Connery, but I am aware of his work. But I do know of his James Bond films, The League of Extraordinary Gentlemen, and Indiana Jones and the Last Crusade, which is probably my fondest memory of Sean Connery, which is in that movie where he plays Indiana Jones' father in that film, and had one of my favorite scenes ever in the movie.
I can get it. I can almost reach it, Dad.
Indiana? Indiana?
Let it go.
So Sean Connery, he is gone, but he will surely not be forgotten because he is truly a Hollywood legend. Rest in peace, rest in paradise, Sean Connery. Your legacy will live on. So now for my first segment, I will break down some movie and TV news that broke out during the month of October, starting with some release schedule changes. In fact, speaking of James Bond, the newest James Bond film, No Time to Die, which was scheduled to come out this month in November, is now getting pushed back pretty much a year since it was intended to come out, which is April of 2021. The Batman, starring Robert Pattinson, which was supposed to come out in October of next year, is now getting pushed back to March of 2022. The new Pixar film, Soul, which was also supposed to come out this month in November, is now getting pushed to Christmas of this year and will now be released on Disney+. And finally, Amazon buys the new Coming to America sequel, Coming to America, for $125 million. Now, my best answer as to why all these sudden movie date changes is because, well, the best answer I can give is movie theaters are just not making enough money right now. Despite that the world is slowly but surely opening back up, people are still apprehensive about going to the movies. Because if they were to release it right now, they probably just wouldn't. But, you know, anything could happen, but I can understand why studios are making these adjustments, though. Jared Leto is slated to come back as his version of the Joker that we saw in the Suicide Squad. He will be a part of the Zack Snyder's Justice League reshoots. Now, how do I feel about that? Personally, I'm actually excited because I don't necessarily hate Jared Leto's version of the Joker like everybody else does. Granted, by default, he's the worst, but that's only by default. I mean, personally, I felt like in Suicide Squad, we didn't really get enough of his version of the Joker to really justify whether or not he is the worst or not. So I'm glad Zack Snyder, he's pretty much picking his character up and giving him a little bit more to do, and we'll see what the DCU had intended for this Joker in the Snyder Cut of Justice League. The trailer for the newest Disney animated film, Raya and the Last Dragon, premiered this month. And when I saw the trailer, I was immediately sold because not only are we getting another minority Disney princess, I mean, maybe she's not a princess, maybe she's just a heroine, but we are just getting another progressive princess. But we're getting another progressive princess in the vein of Mulan, Moana, and the title character, Raya, is going to be voiced by Kelly Marie Tran, which I'm very excited for her about because, let's be real, Disney, Lucasfilm, y'all really did her dirty. So I'm glad that Disney, they gave her this, so like, okay, we know we fucked up with you in Star Wars, so here, we give you this, and yeah. Now, it seemed like every week I've heard some Spider-Man news because Spider-Man 3 starring Tom Holland is supposed to delve into the Spider-Verse, which hopefully is the case, and I'm very excited for that. Particularly with the news that supposedly, now I don't know if this is true or not, but it said that all the previous Spider-Mans, Tobey Maguire, Andrew Garfield, are supposed to return for Spider-Man 3. If that is true, I will be very excited for that because I love Tobey Maguire's Spider-Man trilogy. Those three films are near and dear to my heart. Now, Andrew Garfield, on the other hand, I mean, I like his Spider-Man, but not his Tobey Maguire, but it's good to see him pretty much get his due back. But it's pretty much good to give him a second chance at redeeming his version of Spider-Man, though. And talk about multiverse or Spider-Verse, it also doesn't help that Doctor Strange is supposedly making an appearance in Spider-Man 3. Yep, that's right, Benedict Cumberbatch is gonna make an appearance in this movie. Then the real icing on the cake for all the Spider-Man news that came out is Jamie Foxx as Electro is supposed to return, but not as the Electro we saw in The Amazing Spider-Man 2, just a different version of Electro. I don't know what that means, but I have mixed feelings about his version of Electro, but I'm curious to see what they do with him. But at this point, I'm just ready to see a trailer. And then once I see the trailer, I'm just like, because like right now, it has my curiosity, but then I'm thinking once I see a trailer, it will have my full and undivided attention. And then lastly, with the movie news, a whole bunch of theater chains are closing down because 2020. Now, AMC, on the other hand, they have just filed for Chapter 11 bankruptcy. Now, in case you're wondering, Chapter 11 bankruptcy is nothing to panic about. That just means, like, AMC, they're putting a plan together, and then they're pretty much promising, like, okay, once this plan is set in motion, we can do this. But other than that, but if it was Chapter 7 bankruptcy, then yeah, that would be a huge problem. But how do I feel about movie theaters in general right now? I mean, the future is uncertain for movie theaters because right now they're just not making enough money, and not enough people are going out because there's no big movies coming out. I mean, it's been a while since I've been to. In fact, I don't think I've been to the movie theater since September. I might just check out to see what's playing just to, pretty much keep my sanity going with movies right now. But like, I don't know. It's a scary thing to think about. Like, movie theaters are really in danger of just becoming a thing of the past. So that's why I encourage people, like, please go out to the theater, but be smart about it. Don't go out immediately. Still be safe, and if you do go out to the movie theaters, follow all the safety rules, please. And honestly, I feel like AMC and any other theater chains, they really could have done more. Like, obviously that'll be a video for another day of what theaters could have done to keep afloat, but I really feel like they could have done more. But hey, it is what it is, so. And now for my next segment. Now, since it is the month of October, you know what that means. Yeah, Halloween. It's alright. I thought I'd be silly. I've had this thing for years. It's actually been in my family since the 90s, with, Scream, Ghostface, but yeah, the reason for these little pins, these are wrestling pins, and they represent each high school that I beat somebody from, so yeah. But yeah, since it was October, which leads into Halloween, that means it was time for me to marathon scary movies. Now, I could make a long list breaking down some of my favorite scary movies to watch around this time, but I just don't have that much time in my hands, so I could narrow it down to only a couple. And that's what I'm going to do right now, is break down the scary movies I watched during the month. And I decided to use the scary movies that I love revisiting every year. These are my top Halloween picks. Now, the first movie I'm going to talk about, I'm going to start off with something a little bit light. And that is Casper. Now, it may not be scary, but it does have scary elements in it. But it's Casper, which came out in 1995. It's one of my favorite movies of all time. Well, favorite family films of all time. I remember I had this on VHS back in the day. I wore this VHS out. But of course, it's based on the comic strip and cartoon Casper the Friendly Ghost. And he befriends a family that moves in, and the family is going through their own little thing after suffering a tragic loss. And so Casper befriends them, as well as they also got to deal with his three crazy uncles, Stretch, Fatso, and Stinky. And through all of this, the family forms a bond with the ghost. But the best way I can really describe this movie is just think of this as, look, is it a perfect movie? But no, but just think of it as a bizarre Stephen King ghost movie. After all, it does take place in Maine. But I do feel like this movie is a lot deeper than people get it credit for, because you got Bill Pullman in the movie searching for his deceased wife, and he thinks ghosts are real. And then there's also this theme of ghosts are just people with unfinished business. So he thinks his wife may have unfinished business, but spoiler alert, when he does see his wife in the end, and when she comes back and she tells him, you and Kat loved me so much when I was alive that I have no regrets. But you see what I mean? This movie is a lot deeper than it has any right to. And of course, Christina Ricci in the movie, she is great in the movie. In fact, I think at the time when this movie came out, she was hot off of The Addams Family. And the visual effects on the ghost itself still hold up. I'm surprised this movie does not get brought up a lot when it comes to visual effects from the 90s that still holds up. Because holy crap, that looks so real. But in any case, I love watching this movie every Halloween because it's fun, it's friendly, and I like ghost movies for some reason, and I just have the soft spot in my heart for this movie. So, Casper, I gave it the thumbs up emoji. Now, the next thing is pretty much 3 movies, and that is It from 1990, the miniseries, It Chapter 1 and Chapter 2. Hey, in case you haven't seen, yeah, It, Pennywise. But I chose to watch both versions of It because it had been a year since I've seen Chapter 2 in the theaters. In fact, I think that was probably the only time I've seen it. Just for some reason, I just never got around to it, or I just didn't have the motivation to. But since it is Halloween and I do like the character of Pennywise, I felt now was a good time to watch all of them and compare. But of course, the It miniseries from 1990, for some, yes, it is campy, it is corny, the acting is hokey, but I feel like it kind of relished into it. And Tim Curry is a national treasure. He gave 1,000,000% in this, and you can tell he clearly had fun. Now, It Chapter 1 and 2 with Pennywise, played by Bill Skarsgård, I do like his version. It's a bit of a more darker and serious take on it, but personally, I like Tim Curry's version because I feel like he pretty much knows how to draw the line between scary and funny. And I feel like Bill Skarsgård, he was scary, but not enough funny. And I'm not saying he didn't have his funny moments, but I feel like Tim Curry, he knew how to walk that fine line, and he knew exactly what he was making. Now, as far as the kids and the adults in both versions, I feel like they were hit or miss with some of the casting. Like with Ben Haskell in the miniseries, I felt that was excellent casting with the kid they chose for him, and John Ritter, rest in peace, playing the older version of that character, as opposed to the Ben Haskell. I feel like they did a good job with the casting of the kid, but not so much great casting with the adult version of him. I feel like in both versions they did a good job with Beverly Marsh, both as a kid and an adult, as well as Ben Durborough, even Richie, but my favorite version of Richie is the adult version from the It miniseries. And no disrespect to Bill Hader, I like what he did, and it was admirable what they did for his character in Chapter 2, though, but there's just a certain likeness that the actor in the miniseries brought. But pretty much the reason I chose to watch both versions of It, so I can pretty much finally put a bow on this, so I can pretty much be done with Pennywise for the next couple of years. So, but the It miniseries, that'll be the one I love rewatching the most for some reason. I gave the It miniseries the thumbs up emoji. I gave It Chapter 1 the hard eyes emoji. And It Chapter 2 the thumbs up emoji. Next up is American Werewolf in London, which is about two men that go across country in London, but then they come across a wild wolf. One of them gets killed by him, but the other one gets infected by him, and now whenever a full moon comes up, he turns into a werewolf and goes on a violent range in killing people, but he doesn't even know about it until he turns back into a human. Now, my personal history with this is John Landis, who is the director of this film, who directed Michael Jackson's Thriller video, in which you can hear sounds and effects, and pretty much everything he did in this movie was brought over to that. So that was my first exposure to him, and then watching this, I'm like, oh, so this is okay. But that's one scene alone where we see him fully transforming into a werewolf. That scene just sticks with me because it is more believable than any CGI bullshit they throw at us nowadays. Now, granted, it does have some dated elements, but damn it, I don't care. I still find that believable. And it just the body horror of it all just, ooh. But yeah, it's always fun revisiting this movie, and that's why I gave it the hard eyes emoji. Next up is Freddy vs. Jason, which is absolutely one of my favorite horror films of all time, because it was probably my first exposure to the character of Jason Voorhees and Freddy Krueger, because everybody, I remember I was in middle school and everybody made such a big deal about it, but I didn't watch it until probably a year later after it came out, and it started premiering it on, I think, Stars, because my parents wouldn't let me watch horror movies at the time, but I watched it on TV and I absolutely loved it. And of course, from that movie I went back and watched all the Nightmare on Elm Street and Friday the 13th, but this will always be my favorite because how it just took these two iconic horror characters together and blended them together so perfectly. Is it a perfect movie? No, but is it a fun movie? Yes. I just love how they just blended these two franchises together. With Freddy Krueger, he's been gone for several years, and the people in the town where Elm Street is, they've all forgotten about him, so he summons Jason to rise up from the dead and inflict horror in the town to make people remember him. But then Jason, he starts getting carried away, and so Freddy Krueger is like, alright, okay, you want to keep going? Fine, I'll take matters into my own hands. And then they go at it, and then that affects other characters in the movies, and it's just good stuff. What I love about this movie is how it blends two franchises together, but also gives me a rip-roaring good time. And that's why I gave it the hard eyes emoji. And lastly, for my Halloween picks is Poltergeist, which is one of my favorite films of all time. It's one of my favorite horror films of all time, and my favorite film to watch around this time of the year. It's about a family that's been living in this neighborhood for years. The patriarch of the family is a realtor. But then the daughter starts speaking to the TV, and evil spirits start talking to her, and then the whole house starts acting weird, and then bad stuff starts happening, and so the family comes together to save the daughter from this other dimension and possibly see what's going on with the house. But of course, the plot twist of the movie, spoiler alert, is that the neighborhood that they're living in was built on top of a cemetery. And that leads to one of my favorite lines in any movie ever. "You son of a bitch! You moved the cemetery, but you left the bodies, didn't you? You son of a bitch, you left the bodies and you only moved the headstones! You only moved the headstones! Why? Why?" But even before all that, my personal history with this movie, it's a movie that I think growing up, my family, they always watched on TV, but I never really paid too much attention to it. Until the remake that came out in 2015, I watched that, but before I watched that, I watched the original version, which I always like to do with remakes, is watch the original first and then the remake, but obviously the original is superior than the remake, and since then, I just watch this movie every year. Yeah, that's why I gave Poltergeist the hands up emoji. That's it for this episode of the Lassiter Factor Monthly Report. Thank you so much for watching. If you like this video, like, comment, share, subscribe. Let me know what you think in the comment section below. I'm your host, Bradford Lassiter. Stay safe, wash your hands. Peace.